I'll tell you, this is a parts rig, so I'm not expecting a whole lot. I paid 75 bucks for it with shipping. Yeah, you really have to double box. Look at these impact marks made by the feet. Look at that, it's cut right through the box. And this is one of the feet. Man, it must have just fallen right off the truck. Let's survey this old veteran. Well, it's in a little worse shape than I remembered. That's amazing. I've never seen that before. Wouldn't it be fun to just take this down to bare metal? Interesting. I don't know what causes this kind of degradation on the knobs, except it must have been inside somebody's garage. One of the paper caps was replaced, but the other one wasn't. The carrier null pot was replaced. That's good. That can't be too old. This has to have been within the last decade. Thank you for saving the tube shields. Appreciate that. So yeah, it's in bad shape. Well, just to give you an idea, let me lick my finger. Show you what those boards might look like under all that grime. Wow. Pretty bad. It does have the finals. That's nice. Oh, and I see that resistor has been upgraded according to the service bulletin. So yeah, it's somebody cared about this rig at one point, and then they may have passed on into another realm. Let's see if we can bring this rig into another realm. I'm kind of puzzled about these two switches here. Uh-oh. Wow, look at that. What's going on here? So that's the on and off switch. I'm definitely not going to be applying any power until I replace that. It's got a SO239 mounted a little differently, but that's okay. And what else does it have of interest? I think it needs a bath. You may have seen my other videos where I'm restoring the HW-101. I do a lot of those. Felt like it was time to get back to these SB rigs. You know, they're really sweet. I like being able to repair it by just raising the hood. What I do not like about these SB rigs is the tuning mechanism. It's very difficult to work on. It's very complicated. Nothing at all like the HW-101, which is simplicity itself, kind of. Maybe not. But here you've got all kinds of things that can wear out after 60 years or so, and it's I just don't like working on these, but I'm going to do it. Here's something else we're going to have to deal with. The band switch is spinning freely. It doesn't have a stop, and it's not clicking. That's the detent, D-E-T-E-N-T. This is what tells the switch when to stop, and it gives it its clicks. It's not working. It's not a hard fix. So you know the routine, just a little plain dishwashing soap, some warm water, and the only difference between this sink scrub and what I would do with the 101, HW101, is I'm going to be very careful not to get any water on this side. There's a lot more stuff happening over here, and I don't want to get a lot of water into that mechanism. So I'm going to spray it, but I'm going to try to focus the spray this way and just give that end a break. All I'm doing is going in with a floppy paintbrush, just trying to get all the crud out of there. That's it. That's all I'm doing. And I'm going to put it in the oven for half an hour, let it sit for another half hour. It's thoroughly dry, and then put it out in the hot sun for a day, or in front of a heat lamp, whatever you got. The thing is, it's got to be completely dry. This is not hurting the rig at all unless you fire it up. and it's still got moisture in the coils, etc., etc. Got the toothbrush for the hard to reach places. And rinse it thoroughly. You see what I'm talking about? Look at those boards. Holy cow. Got the same thing on the back. Taking care to remove the switchboard cover. Okay, better, but look at that grit between those tube sockets. I want to get in there with a small brush and really get that out of there. If plain soap and water doesn't do it, I might resort to one of those gunk removers, depending on how thick this stuff is. Of course, you run the risk with that of removing the silk screening, so you got to be careful. And there she goes. Like I said, 30 minutes at the lowest setting, which is 170 on my oven. Leave the door closed, turn off the heat, let it sit for another 30, total 1 hour. Well, it's 3 days later, and this is what happened. I did a closer inspection of my boards, and I did not like all the gunk on the RF board. So I cleaned it again. I put it in my oven, and well, as fate would have it, my oven stopped working. So I put it right here and left it here for 3 days. And oh, it's hot to the touch. Nice and dry. You cannot take any chances on this. It's got to be dry. Yeah, super happy with these boards. They're not perfect. There are some spots down here where I didn't quite get all the gunk out, but overall I'm happy with it. I'm going to leave it. So next is checking all the resistors. I have these cheat sheets that are, I think there's some links on the video description to these. I laminate mine just because I use them so much. It's just an easy way for me to check off which ones need to be replaced. And I made these back when I didn't really know the color codes of the resistors, or I hadn't committed them to memory. I pretty much can read a resistor right off now, but for those who don't do this every day, these cheat sheets really help. Yeah, one thing I would need to point out, these sheets are made for the HW-101. They are about 98% applicable to this rig. There are a few places where you find some differences, like this side tone adjustment does not exist on the HW-101, and so the surrounding resistors are maybe a little different. This crystal socket does not exist on the HW-101, and so the surrounding components are slightly different. But overall, it's pretty much the same. So I replaced about a dozen resistors. You'll see the beige, the blue. That's about par for the course here. I'm actually recording this at the end of the restoration because I forgot to include this earlier on. So I'm really looking for resistors that are like 18% or higher above spec. You know, if it's like 15% or 12% or something, I don't mess with it. I just leave it in there. If it's lower, if it falls below its value, that's okay, because the circuit's just bringing it down. That's no big deal. They tend to move higher in resistance as they age. All right, here's our new front panel. There's the old one. Quite an improvement, and the escutcheon will cover up some of the places where the paint's missing, as will the controls. Let's see, here's the meter, bad shape. I was tossing a meter not long ago, and I had the foresight to save the cover. And so I'm just going to put this cover right on here and test the functionality, and hopefully that meter's still working just fine. We'll see. Look at that. What a difference. Before I put the front panel on, I want to make sure this is moving smoothly. It's okay, but I'm going to pull that off and just clean it up. And by the way, you'll note on your SB tuning mechanism, you're going to find these cracks here and then like here. I've never found one of these that didn't have a few cracks like that. If you have a lot of cracks, you can pour in some super glue that will go down in there and kind of freeze the cracks, keep them from spreading. This one's not that bad, so I'm just going to leave it the way it is, but I definitely want it to rotate nice and smooth. This has some resistance. So to get that front dial off, it has a set screw, and you need a long Allen driver to get it out of there. And I just get that Allen driver in, use my pliers to pop it and loosen it. And this guy it comes right off, but you got to be careful because it's very, very brittle. So I'm noticing some resistance inside the LMO. These are not easy to tinker with, but I may have to later. I'm going to leave it for now, come back later and see if it's really impeding the tuning. I'll get in there and clean it up, give it some lubrication, and for now I think it might be okay. Let's see. By the way, I know this is my last opportunity to get easy access to these lamps. I don't know if they work, they probably do, but I'm going to go ahead and replace them just because they are so hard to get to. And by the way, you can replace those lamps with these 6.5 volt LED lamps that are much brighter. And with these dials, they benefit a lot from LEDs. I only have one. It'll be weird if I just put one in there, so I'm just going to replace it with incandescent bulbs. My dial mechanism has a lot of built up oil and gunk in there. You can get that off by pulling off that retaining ring. Just use 2 dental picks or 2 sharp objects, pop that off, and then this slides off and you can clean it up. And there's the final result. Forgot to mention I put a little bit of silicone on there so I could get this thing in and out more easily. When replacing this LMO needs to be fully counterclockwise. This needs to be over to 0, obviously. And then the dial mechanism needs to be with the 90 pointed straight up, and that's straight out of the assembly manual. Just pop it on there. Also, see that little pointy guy right there? It's like a record stylus. That has to be right in the first groove when you slide this thing on. It's a little tricky. It could be that because it's clean or because I was moving that LMO shaft back and forth quite a bit, I feel like it's turning a lot more smoothly now. If for some reason you're at 0 and the needle's not lining up in the neighborhood of one of these 100 kilohertz markers, you have to take this thing off. Then you have to start using these 2 screws to tilt this thing back and forth until you get it so it's hitting right on the money or closer. Man, it's a pain. I do not like these mechanisms. They're very complicated, but when they work well. And keep in mind, this is really more notional than anything else. You know, you can make yourself crazy trying to take this thing off, readjust it, pop it back on, turn it. Oh, it's not lining up right. You know, if it's in the neighborhood, like, look at that. I've got 0 here and it's just slightly off. That's okay. Because, you know, there is a lot of play here. I can turn this back and forth and not get any movement of that needle. So keep that in mind. Don't make yourself crazy over this stuff. Get it working, put it on the air and have fun with it. This is the drive pulley. This is what grabs onto the dial right there, and the knob goes on here, and this is what will rotate this back and forth. This one is really crusty. How do we fix that? Use your power drill. The gunk is right on that shaft in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit it with contact cleaner, and then I'm going to hold this and spin it. So smooth now. before I can get this front panel on, I've got the escutcheon on. Now I've got this guy in there. I'm just going to put it on there with this up and just finger tight. I'm going to want to be able to slip that right in there as I'm trying to finagle all these various controls and potentiometers and stuff. You got to do a lot of stuff at one time to get that panel on there just right. Here's another thing. Oh boy, this is a pain. This is the fine-tuning adjustment for this window. And I find that really the only way to get this into the escutcheon or the front panel is to get it on there like that and then have it ready to go. And once these bottom shafts are in there, I'm just going to try to position that so it's right over the corresponding hole, and then I can just ease it right in there. Now we're just going to finesse each of these shafts. Here we go. Got it positioned, and I can slide that in. Boom. And now as I'm finessing this, I'm going to be real careful about that because I don't want that thing popping off, and I don't want it jamming up against that moving window and cracking it. So I'm just going to keep on gently easing all these shafts until everything's snug. Okay, I finally got it on there. I'll tell you what, getting this little fine-tuning shaft in there without it slipping off of the window is probably the most challenging part of this project so far. I do have everything in, it's snug against the chassis, so before this thing can pop out again, I'm going to screw it in here and on these bottom switches and pots. So let's do that. Here's a neglected SB-101. I thought I was going to fix this up one day, but probably won't. And it's going to provide us with our function switch. All right, let's do it. We've got meter deflection. That's the first good sign. Hoping it comes back down. Hoping there's no smoke. Oh, look at that. But I'm not hearing anything. Oh, wow, I don't hear anything, not even a hum. Okay. What does that tell us? Not a whole lot. You always hope you're going to get lucky and the thing just comes alive, and yeah, I don't think that's happening today. We have a little rust problem. It's just kind of a patina, but I want to deal with that with something called OSFO. Probably heard of it, you probably used it. Just takes a little bit on a Q-tip. I'll come back later and wipe it off. And that's what it looks like 15 minutes later. Pretty good. This is the driver pre-selector shaft, and it's so tarnished, it feels kind of chalky. I'm going to show you how I deal with that. This is a 400 grade sandpaper, very, very fine. I just put this on the end of my power driver. You can put some Brasso on there. I think I'll do that. What a difference, huh? Here's the shaft for the finals. I think it needs a little cleanup too. This one fits inside this one, and it needs to be cleaned up and oiled because these need to turn independently of each other. And for this one, I'm just going to put a little Brasso in there and spin it. There it is, amazing. Looks like gold. Putting on the knobs, and I'm noticing that some of these knobs have kind of a yellowish inset. I think I can get that off. Oh yeah, look at that. Sometimes you come across one of these with no inlay. There is actually a guy on the internet who makes these inlays, and they are a perfect match. Okay, knobs are on and looking good. Oops, forgot that one. Did notice though, remember at the beginning, this thing is not clicking. That is because of this little thing called a detente, and I've got to replace it. This is what clicks it into place and tells it to stop when it gets to the end. Removing the band switch shaft is about the easiest thing there is. You just loosen that set screw and the whole thing pulls out. You have to first take that nut off. That attaches the detente to the front panel. Well, I knew there was something very strange about getting nothing through the speaker, not even a hum. It's this. A previous owner put this audio shutoff switch on there. Let's get rid of that. I pulled the switch, and these two coax need to go to pins on the headphone jack that don't exist. There should be 4 pins. This one only has 2. Thankfully, I found one that'll work. And by the way, I know that because it's in the manual. I'm consulting this manual constantly. All right, there it is. But before I insert it and mount it in the faceplate and chassis, I want to go ahead and conquer the microphone socket. It's a little challenging. You got to get a pair of pliers in there somehow. I wish I could video this, but it's just too hard to get to do the work and have the camera trained right inside there. But take my word for it, you need some space here if you're going to try to tighten the back of the microphone socket. This isn't the most wildly effective way to do it, but that's pretty much, God. This isn't the most effective way to do it, but this is how I've come to do it, just because this is the only tool I have that'll get in there and get that thing tight. You can also hold the back and use pliers to turn the front of the socket. It's really a good idea though to do it in a way that you can line up those 2 holes so that they're not wonky. And they're both installed now, just like so. Let's move on. I'm gonna get that off with some acetone. I love the relays on the SB line rigs because if your relay goes bad, there's a socket. You just pull it out, replace it. On the HW line rigs, you have to wire in each one of those points. So removing it and rewiring it is a real hassle. Anyway, I want to clean the contacts on here. Sometimes dirty contacts will make the receiver sound a little mushy. And to do that, I sprayed it out with contact cleaner, and I'm just going to run that slip of paper through there between the contacts. Sure is looking like a real rig now. Let's fire it up. Sounds like there's some worms that need to get worked out. You hear that sizzling sound? There's a tube that's not seated correctly. The meter's not responding. We can fix that. I feel like the band could be a little louder, and I'm going to take care of that when I get to the alignment stage. So it's time to deal with this guy. I've been procrastinating on this. That is the dial drive pulley shaft right there. And it's got 2 plates that clamp down on this metal ring right here. And when I'm in the up position, it's got a lot of movement. When you go down, it doesn't. that's because that's where that pulley shaft is brushing up against the ring. What I want to do is figure out where the two plates are grabbing that ring, and it's right there. You'll know because as soon as you press downward and start turning, the dial turns. But it's got to be on there tight. If it's not on tight, then you get this. So here's how I'm going to get it on there as tight as possible. I'm going to exert a downward pressure on this washer using this slot screwdriver. So I'm pressing down, got it nice and tight. I'm going to turn this. And all the while, I'm pressing down on that screwdriver. And now, we're in business. It needs a knob, and here's another knob that's not in great shape. Thankfully, I have another insert. Here's the same signal on two radios. This is my wonderful Heath SS9000, and you can see it's at 14.057. Same signal on the SB-101. And now we're there. And the receiver's sounding good. Well, here we are getting really close to the finish line. And wow, what a nice loud receiver this thing has. I went through and aligned the driver grid, driver plate coils, the heterodyne oscillator coils. Finals have been neutralized. I'm not going to go through that process. I've gone through that on other videos. I nulled the carrier. So yeah, what's next? It's been aligned. It's been finals neutralized. Carrier nulled. I guess what's left is to have some QSOs and see if there are any other mysteries lurking in this beast. Well, I'm loving this rig except for the meter. It was working before and now it's not. So this is a common problem. It's usually because either V3 on the left or V4 on the right is gassy, and you know it after about half an hour, the meter just stops. Could also be V10 and V11, one of those two, but usually it's right here. The service bulletin recommends replacing those with GE tubes, so I'm going to do that, see if that fixes things. Okay, new tubes installed. I fired it back up, and now turn on the calibrator. Oh, look at that.
Parks in the air, CC Parks on the air. This is Alpha India 5, Quebec Echo, and you have 2996.
Okay, it's about 10 minutes later, and once again, meter's dead.
Whiskey 1 Foxtrot.
Okay, so I ended up swapping those new tubes that I put in, and it's working great now. I'm going to keep watching it, but I think that was the ticket. You are 5'9" into South Texas, over.
Roger. Well, I'm up here in Northeast Texas. Well, thank you very much for the contact this afternoon, over.
Roger that. I just want to say I'm on a Heathkit SB-101 that I just restored. You're my first contact, and is my audio okay?
Audio sounds great on this end, over.
That's good to know. Hey, thanks a lot in 73.
Good hunting, 73. QRZ, Whiskey 1 Foxtrot.
Well, I've had QSOs on this rig. I've tested it on all bands. I have realigned it just to be sure. And I can't find anything else wrong with it. I want to mention something also. This meter comes off of an HW101. It does not have the indication on here for such as like the high voltage. There should be different meter indications printed on there for the SB-101. I don't have an SB-101 meter, so I'm going to stick with this one. Basically, the only difference is these voltage markings along the top.
600 watts.
Listen to that receiver. Let's take a look at the cabinet. Cabinet's in pretty good shape. I'm going to replace that danger sticker. Yeah, let's see what happens when we try to clean it up. Sometimes they clean up nicely and sometimes they don't. And when they don't, I repaint them. Yeah, I promise you, Crud Cutter does not pay me to say this, but just look at that difference. Wow. Check that out. Sweet. Add the feet. And the final touch. I complain about how I don't like working on these tuning mechanisms on the SB rigs. What I do like about the SB rigs is the cabinet and being able to just open the hood and get in there. You got a tube that needs to be seated, just raise the hood. As opposed to one of these HW101s where you have to remove like, I don't know, 20 screws. No, this is great. And there's definitely a place in my heart and in my shack for these SB transceivers. There's some little chips right on the edge of the cabinet. I'm going to use my brush bottle touch-up paint. I do not like to use this on the cabinet itself, like out in the open. I only use it like in these places like right in here or maybe down in there. We can't really tell. If I put it right on here, you would definitely be able to tell. It's a very good match. I sell these on eBay, but these cabinets are faded. They're discolored for whatever reasons. They never match exactly. So I only use touch-up paint where it will de-emphasize something and not try to cover up some sort of big patch. So there we go. You know, we're not trying to trick anybody. Just trying to, you know, mask over any really glaring spots where there's exposed metal. You know, and honestly, when there are scratches and scuffs on these things, these guys are veterans. You know, they've been through probably 1 or 2 different operators' shacks, maybe more, and they accrue signs of age, and that's just part of their lineage, you know? So I don't try to go overboard, but I will paint a cabinet if it's really in bad shape, especially if there's rust. Anyway, wow, that was rewarding, and it was fun. You know, it didn't hit any really insurmountable challenges on this one. Working on the tuning mechanism was a little dicey, but we got it going. It's tuning smoothly, and meter's working as it should. It's got full output, and I would call that done. So thanks for watching, and good luck with your restoration. 73.